I'm purple.
You are. You're a
Why
little
am I
on
Amanda,
the red
any
side.
idea why my camera's making me out to be purple?
Must be an auto color balance thing,
Look at that.
because
I'm purple.
your kitchen is properly colored.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like it, though.
You look like you're in Suspiria.
Yeah. All right, we're just going to keep purple. I like it.
Warning! This movie podcast actually discusses movies. Be aware that it may discuss any of the following elements: endings, surprise twists, unexpected cameos, and all manner of spoilers. If this doesn't appeal to you, why listen to a movie podcast? Without further ado, please enjoy our feature presentation, The Shamelist Picture Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shamelist Picture Show podcast. I am Michael Vyers, and with me is a man that I have not written an intro for today.
Nick Richards.
I realize I have nothing if we don't have a topic, because I usually mine whatever we are talking about to find what I'm going to say about you. And today I had nothing.
They're really our crutch to make sure that we're not awful.
It's our quality control. Even last week when I had to do the episode with Nico, it was funny because the flow is completely different. Doing an actual episode with someone else.
Sure.
And not to throw him under the bus, I could tell he's not listened to the show. He's not in a long time. So when I got to the point where he had to say his name, I just tell him, say your name.
Well, that was our first 6-7 episodes too. It took me a while.
We have trained each other, and then the one time you did it really threw me. So, I don't know what we're going to call this episode yet, listeners, but if you are indeed listening to this, unless you are such a blind follower of the show that you just hit play whenever you see our beautiful mugs show up on iTunes, you probably realize that this show is not about anything. I'd say we should call it our Seinfeld episode, but then people would expect us to talk about Seinfeld.
Right. Yeah, that's the problem with a media-based podcast.
So this is our episode about
guilty pleasures.
Guilty pleasures, yeah. Oh, I guess I could have done something for intro. Could have done something like he's the non-guilty pleasure or something.
Oh,
that could be kind of gross.
Well, something the wrong way that I liked about this topic was that from the very beginning we kind of in part set up this podcast concept around the idea that we shouldn't have guilty pleasures, that you shouldn't feel guilty about wanting to watch the things that you want to watch.
Yeah.
So that was running through my head the whole time that I was making my list here, is like, well, you know what? I shouldn't be ashamed of that.
Yeah, and actually, I even felt weird too when I suggested, because I feel like guilty pleasure is an easy thing to suggest, because even if you don't necessarily believe in guilty pleasures, everyone knows what a guilty pleasure is. So, but no, I'm kind of in the same way, where there's actually a podcast I listen to called Shockwaves, and they've got a whole thing on their show that they don't believe in guilty pleasures either. Their whole thing is, there's no such thing as so good it's bad. It's so good it's awesome. And that's kind of like where I've been, where ever since I left film school and moved on to bigger and better things, I have started realizing that I don't have to feel ashamed for what I'm interested in. That's why I love the Super Mario Brothers so much. And
Right.
if we didn't have an episode planned later on for it, that would have definitely been on this list. I think you're right. We have talked about in the past, our, I guess not our I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. As you said, we don't really like the term guilty pleasure. So I feel I wonder if we should come up with a new term.
Well, I've comprised my list. Each one has a different reason why I was able to classify it as guilty pleasures. And I found it interesting how different those reasons were. There's the kiddie movie that I couldn't, I liked a lot of children's animated films. Back when we were growing up, they were geared more to, they were written by adults for adults, that kids appreciated, but many kids, things like even today I can justify. and say, well, this is really good for this, this, and this reason. And the one that I put on my list today is one that it's hard for me to say, well, adults should be able to like this too, but I still like it. Whereas there's another one that I never considered a guilty pleasure. I think it fits well within the nerd wheelhouse, but I've talked to other nerds that like that same kind of stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, no, I just didn't get into that. So that was a guilty pleasure for a different reason. And then there's the goes against stereotype, where I picked a like romantic comedy that as a man, I kind of just falls outside of that. So each one had a different reason for being there.
Yeah, and then I've also found too that, like, for example, there was a good period of time in my life where I always considered Power Rangers to be a guilty pleasure of mine. But then I've realized that I know a ton of people that still love Power Rangers. And I was like, can I really consider it a guilty pleasure when the fan base of people in my age group it's still there? Like,
right.
Kids are always going to love Power Rangers because they're Power Rangers. But, like, the fact that people my age still adore it as much as they do is like, I don't think that can any longer count as a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I think what you're kind of dancing around there, or maybe the point that you haven't realized you're making yet, is that defining something as a guilty pleasure depends so much on the experience of the person's viewing habits and their experience. Were they ever made fun of for liking something? Even if when you find out later in your adult life that there's this huge Power Rangers fan base, if you were catching shit for it when you were younger, then you still had to choose to like it despite it being something that was looked down on in your circle.
Yeah, and actually I've found that being made fun of for something that you like is not exclusive for... Do you need to get going now, Amanda? Sorry. Let me restart again.
Yeah.
I have found even in my adult life that being made fun of for something that you love or like is not exclusive to being a child.
Sure.
And I think internally that is the reason, like you said before, that we started this show, to reclaim that. Because I still find it all the time. Like, I try my best not to be negative towards things that I either don't like or don't understand. I unless we are talking about it for a show, even when we are talking about it for a show, I try not to be negative for negative's sake, and that's why you always we challenge each other to find something good about it.
Yep.
But I think for the most part, there hasn't been anything that we've watched that we've hated, because we are above that. We try not to hate, but it happens where there's something that just doesn't gravitate with you, and I tend to. Unless I got like a small circle of friends that I can talk to about it, I try not to. If I can't say anything nice, I don't say anything at all.
Right.
Essentially, is my motto for it. But like just the other day, I'm not. He's going to remain nameless, but someone I know posted an article about Super Mario Brothers and had a very clickbaity title, like something along the lines with every day on set was another pain app, was just as painful as the last, or some bullshit like that. And it was, I didn't even read the article because to me it just felt like it was going to be trying to be an eloquent way of saying, look how bad this movie is, and isn't this movie terrible? And I'm thinking, like, I legitimately love that movie, and why should I feel like I'm being attacked because as a grown-ass man, I enjoy this movie.
Right.
And, like, while it's not necessarily, like, getting beat up on the playground, like, yeah, you're still getting picked on for liking movies that other people don't.
Right.
And, I don't think that's a cool way to handle yourself. So,
and I'm not gonna take it anymore.
No! And then I pull out my big, dirty, hairy gun.
All right, so
become a vigilante for cinema.
We have each picked at least 5.
At least, yeah.
TV shows or films that we have personally classified as being
a guilty pleasure.
And I
Real
figure
quick, I have to ask.
Yeah.
Oh, continue. I have to ask before we get started. Is there any selections on your list that you feel like might, for lack of a term, cause some outrage, some controversy? Because there's one on mine that I have not, other than my wife Amanda, I've not met a single person who likes this movie the way I do.
No, I don't. I think
it's one of those movies that's classically picked on, almost to the extent of where it makes you roll your eyes.
Okay. No, I think mine are the majority of them are ones that a lot of people either haven't heard of or fell under the radar. There's one that I think most people will have heard of, and I think a lot of people would hear me describe it as a guilty pleasure, and they would say, "Well, I don't know, no, that was a good movie." Like, why did But that's how it felt to me. I gotta renumber my list. I went 1 to 5 instead of 5 to 1.
I was up last night, finishing one of the movies I had to watch for sponsorship duties, and as I thought of something, I just made a list on my phone. So they're not numbered. I'm just gonna pick which order. And
Okay.
There's more than 5. Originally, I was gonna get up this morning and also like look at my DVD shelf and like what screams out at me.
That's what I did.
But I don't know if it's gonna be my definitive list, but it's whatever. If we need to, we can always do a part 2 of this episode.
Right. So the one film that I really wanted to put on this list but couldn't, because we just did an episode about it, of course, was The Hunter from the Future. If any film belongs on my guilty pleasures list, it's The Hunter from the Future.
The Hunter from the Future. It's almost like doing it's almost like, for lack of a term, got the Criterion treatment of podcasting, because like people are talking about now. You can go to a Walmart and buy The Hunter from the Future. Like, who would have thought this goofy little movie that you loved that you had a VHS copy of would go on to do something?
Right. Yeah.
And like, I follow a lot of different Blu-ray and DVD collecting pages. And there was a good week's time there where everyone would show like their epic haul or whatever, and there was almost always a copy of in everyone's haul. And even before I saw it, I'm like, fuck yeah, And while I don't think we are the reason the show got the movie came back on everyone's radar, you were championing it very early on.
Yep.
And I remember I was close to renting it from Amazon before that Blu-ray came out.
Okay.
So, I'm trying to think if there's anything that we've covered in the past that would be on my shame list. Let me take a quick look at all of our episodes, because I can't remember everything that we have done. Because one thing I have to say I like about what we've done with this show is we've done a great job of having very mixed episodes. Like the fact that we went from Gone with the Wind to Moonraker.
Yeah, and I don't want to pigeonhole it into like any particular genre or time period, or I like that it bounces around. I think it's in the spirit of what we're doing.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that would be on my guilty pleasure list that we've talked about yet, but whenever we get to that Mario Brothers episode,
that'll be it.
Episode. That's my episode, Nick.
All right. Well, we'll start with number 5. Who wants to start this thing?
Since
you want
have
first
yours
seeds
numbered,
or last
let's start
seeds?
with you.
Okay.
Let's go with you, because you actually have yours numbered, and you put some thought into yours. I'm like, I've got 5 of them. We'll figure it out.
So number 5, 10 things I hate about you.
No one will go out with her.
Hey, what about him?
Him? No, don't look at him, okay? He's a criminal. I heard he lit a state trooper on fire. He just did a year in San Quentin.
Yeah, well then at least he's horny.
I'm serious, man. He's whacked. He sold his own liver on the black market for a new set of speakers.
He's our guy.
And that's the one that I thought would get that reaction, where a lot of people would say, you know what, no, it's a good movie with a lot of good dialogue. Solid story, good acting, but it's that I think that's the 35-year-old male saying that he really enjoys 10 Things I Hate About You. Like, I could see getting some side looks.
Yeah, and plus, best to remember, that movie had a really like great cast too.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Heath Ledger.
Yep. 2 Batman alumni in a non-Batman movie.
Yeah, that's when Joseph Gordon-Levitt came in to that universe. That was like what me and all of my nerd friends were talking about, was 10 Things I Hate About You.
That would have been great if Heath Ledger was still around. They would have done that movie together. I'm like, wow, look at that lineage.
The Secret Life of Alex Mack. I can't think of her actual name.
I know what you're talking.
Which
Secret Life of
Mill Creek has the entire Secret Life of Alex Mack on DVD.
Yeah,
that is one I will be
selling
getting.
it right now. Is it Julia Stiles?
No, but that was the other.
No.
She's the star, Julia Stiles. If you don't consider it an ensemble cast, she's really the protagonist.
Yeah, hold on. I know I can picture her face and I can picture her girl. Well, you know what's funny? I never associated that with being the same girl. Like, which is weird because like I had a huge crush on the Alex Mack when I was a kid.
Her and Clarissa.
Clarissa explains it all. Yes. Larissa Olenek.
Okay.
Olenek. She was also in the Babysitters Club.
Oh, nice.
But no, Secret Life of Alex Mack is actually at Best Buy right now, and it's taking all of my power not to pick it up.
Well, it's hard to pick her up because she's a puddle of liquid.
Puddle of goo. Yeah. Anyways, continue.
So Julia Stiles is amazing in it, and it's one of those films that's endlessly quotable. There are so many lines in it that I still to this day use in my lexicon that I've used so much I forget that it's even a quote from my movie.
Yeah. That's kind of how Heather's is with me.
And whenever any of my friends get into the Shakespeare discussion with me about how I think he's overrated, I still think he's great. I just think he's overrated. I remember your episode about it. They inevitably quote from 10 Things I Hate About You, where Julia Stiles' character's friend is talking about Shakespeare, or somebody mentioned Shakespeare to her, and she goes, "We're involved," meaning her and Shakespeare.
Yeah. You know what? And this is going to be a bold statement. But you know how like the 80s get the nod for being like for a lot of people being the peak time for these teen comedies. I'm going to go one further and say, for me, the 90s were like, and it's not even because that's when I grew up, because I wasn't watching these movies then. I think the 90s all in all had a better assortment of teen comedies.
Yeah. Well, some of that might be that I think when people talk about the 80s, they're actually talking about like 1986 to 1995. Like that chunk of time there.
And yeah, John Hughes did some great, but I think people forget there's other movies besides what John Hughes was making.
Yeah.
Like I just did a general Google search for 90s teen comedies, and here's what all pops up. And I feel like you'll agree with me. Number 1 is Clueless.
Yeah.
10 Things I Hate About You. American Pie. Can't Hardly Wait. Drive Me Crazy.
I
Never
love
Been
Can't Hardly
Kissed.
Wait.
Yeah. Dazed and Confused. Jawbreaker.
Yeah.
Empire Records. Election. Pleasantville. Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. But I'm a Cheerleader.
Don't Tell Mom the
Idle
Babysitter's
Hands.
Dead. I'm pretty sure it had David Duchovny in it.
Which is great.
Random fact.
Encino Man. Good Burger. Like it was a great time, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Actually, that would be my guilty pleasure. Is the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie? Detroit Rock City. Like there's so much that came out in this time, and like I love the '80s, but I got this feeling when I watched Vice Versa, the Milk Creek release, which this will actually be the episode we have to talk about that because I've been meaning to talk about that. As much as I love 80s comedies, there's sometimes where like 80s logic takes over a little too much and things are too over the top for my personal taste.
Well, I think all of those that list that you just read off, you can say that surge of teen comedies in the late 90s and early 2000s owes its existence to the teen films of the 80s.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
But no, I remember discovering 10 Things I Hate About You on HBO at one point, and it's, you know, I was younger at the time, so like HBO always put like a genre next to the title, and I was like romantic comedy. I'm like, I don't want to watch romantic comedy. Yeah. But I don't know what told me to put it on, and I did, and I remember loving it, like just thinking this is really well made, and it's even before I knew much about filmmaking, like I was laughing a lot.
Yeah, I like how much character they gave all of the minor incidental characters. Like every single tiny character had motivation and passion and backstory, and they were all really funny.
Now remember, guys, rip it and rip it.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing I have to say about 10 Things I Hate About You is both my wife and I are madly in love with Julia Stiles.
What's not to love, man? Those eyebrows.
Right?
They're like she.
And those cargo pants.
Her face looks like she was like made out of marble. She's just got like a perfect face. That sounds really weird. Coming like she got a perfect face.
All right. Well, on that creepy note.
Yeah, but she does. She does have a perfect face. Yeah. Anyways,
what is your number 5?
Well, like I said, I didn't number mine, but we're gonna go with my number 5 selection, which is actually 2 picks. I'm cheating. It's simultaneously the Brady Bunch and the Brady Bunch movie.
Okay, that's fair. They're so different,
but they have to exist because of each other.
Yeah,
and I love them both for very similar and very different reasons. Like let's start with. I don't know where to begin. Like if it's like chicken or the egg, like which one comes first? I guess let me start with the actual Brady Bunch. I absolutely adore the Brady Bunch. That is like chicken soup for the soul for me.
Well, it's like your father and I always say: find out what you do best, and then do your best with it.
Yeah.
If I'm ever just like I don't know what to watch, or I'm kind of bummed out, I don't know what to do, and I don't feel like fishing up my Boy Meets World DVDs. Yeah. Only reason I didn't put Boy Meets World on the list is because I feel like that show has never not had a like Brady Bunch is one of those things like it's kind of like the '60s Batman, where there was a period of time where people were afraid to admit that they liked the Brady Bunch. Like, where like, and all of the Brady Bunch for the most part is on Hulu right now. So like I just love that I can put on the Brady Bunch, and it's I'm sent back to a time like I know all these characters, I know their flaws, I know what they like, I know what they don't like. It's like what The Simpsons does for me.
Sure.
Where after a while, I actually mentioned this to my No Homers podcast co-host Nico, not on the air last week, but just asking. I was like, do you ever, if you've been away from a character for too long, I was referencing The Simpsons, do you ever feel like you find yourself missing those characters? And he told me no. So I was like, oh, I'm the weird one. Okay. But,
yeah, no, me either. I've never felt that.
But like the way I'll miss Homer Simpson sometimes if it's been too long since I've watched something with him in it. It's the same way I'll miss Mike Brady or the rest of the Brady kids. It's, you almost like what I think the show does very well.
But every time Marsha turns around, they hand her a blue ribbon or something.
Huh?
Except for Jan, because nobody misses Jan.
Marsha!
But we're all Jan. Jan was written to be all of us. Nick, come on.
I was a Marsha.
You were not the Marsha.
I was not the Marsha.
You were Jan, just like I was. If not Jan, Cindy.
And now I'm Alice.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like I was Bobby.
Oh, nice.
I was the annoying little one that no one quite liked.
Well, I'd rather kiss a basketball.
Here's one for you. Have you seen the Brady Bunch Christmas movie that I believe
Once.
came out in like the early 90s?
Once.
Okay. That one's also up on streaming
A very
services.
Brady Christmas.
And we watched it this last year, and it was incredible.
In what way? Like incredible, like this is fantastic, or incredible as in like, oof.
It
Incredible.
was fantastic. I mean,
Okay.
it opens up on the two parents, right, in their 80s working out outfits, their jogging suits on their side by side treadmills, talking about how much they miss the kids.
Robert Reed's mustache is fantastic. Wait, no, that's not Robert. Holy no, that is Robert Reed. But I was actually talking about Christopher Knight. His mustache is amazing.
A lot of mustache in that movie.
Yeah. No, I'm looking at this right now, and it's like, how have I not? Like, I know I've seen this at least once because there's a point.
Like, in the spirit of we don't care about spoilers, like Mike almost dies in a building collapse.
Damn,
on Christmas.
That's really dark.
It gets heavy.
And that's one thing I have to say. Like, I like so much about the Brady Bunch is it would deal with heavy shit sometimes, not often, but they present it in a way that's very easy to swallow. And there's times where like I will be watching the show now and like the Brady kids are like, we don't have enough bathrooms, and Carol's like, well, Mike, I guess we just should buy a bigger house. I'm thinking, oh, you can just go buy another house.
Must be nice.
With a live-in maid. Huh. And it's like, okay, some of this stuff does not really hold up. But,
poor rich kids.
I know, but there's like some very classic episodes that will stick with me. And I reference all the time. People look at me like I'm stupid. Like, for example, the Davy Jones episode. Like that's one of my favorite episodes of TV, period. Or any of the episodes where the Brady kids travel somewhere, like the one where they go to Hawaii. Meet Vincent Price. You know he's not Vincent Price, but Vincent Price is playing. Okay, it's Vincent Price.
Right.
It's things like that are just ingrained in my DNA. And I remember like say like the episode where they go to the Grand Canyon, it was always like a 2 or 3 episode arc. I remember asking my mom, I was like, hey, can I stay up late tonight and watch this? And she's probably like, other kids at this time were watching South Park and we're sneaking The Simpsons and everything. I'm like, can I stay up and watch the Brady Bunch? And mom was like, I guess? What year is it?
I watched a lot of Cheers.
Cheers is one I didn't get when I was a kid, mainly because I couldn't get past the beginning episode.
Okay.
Or not the beginning episode, like the intro to the show, because the intro was so boring.
I found it so charming.
It's charming now when I watch it, but when I was a kid, I'm like, look at all these old pictures.
Ugh. Give me the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, kids singing, man. And then the Brady Bunch movie, I love because it is the perfect mixture of parody and loving tribute.
Yeah. Yep, that's very well said.
It's the movie. It's making fun of the Brady Bunch hardcore, but in a way that's extremely loving.
Yeah.
Davy Jones is the most.
Jeez, you can be so silly sometimes.
All right, everybody out. This is a car, Jack.
Well, of course this is a car, but my name's not Jack. It's Greg, and this is my sister, Marcia.
Hi.
And the idea that the Brady Bunch are
like Cloris Leachman at a roast.
I'm sorry, what?
Like Cloris Leachman at a roast.
Yeah. And like I love the idea that they brought, their tagline, they're back to save America from the 90s. They brought the most proverbial 60s and 70s family to the 90s.
Wow. She's got it. Yeah, baby, she's got it.
And what's not to love?
Right?
Like, you've seen the movie, right?
I think I've seen pieces. I have not seen it in its entirety in the way that it should be seen, but I'm pretty sure I've seen bits and pieces.
I hope this comes through, because I'm gonna play a song for you through the microphone, Nick.
Okay.
And we'll actually play it in the episode.
Is it Sunshine Day?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't remember what movie it is. It's Davy Jones from the Brady Bunch movie, and Marsha gets Davy Jones to play their prom. But this is the 90s. No one gives a fuck who Davy Jones is. And he goes up there and he starts singing a song, and there's a 90s grunge band behind him. Like, what the fuck do we do? So you know what they do? They 90s grungeify the Monkees.
That's amazing.
And I'm gonna see if it plays through the microphone. He's playing "Girl."
Okay.
His hit song "Girl." I don't know if it's how well it's gonna sound, but we'll know to put it.
We'll
in
fix
the
it in post.
Yeah. So, give me a second. Tell me if you hear this.
Flash.
Yep.
Can I have your attention, please?
Is it too loud?
I have some news that's going to make everyone flip.
Hey, what about me?
I thought he might show up, but I didn't want to get all your hopes up.
Marsha did it again. Marsha.
But here he is. Davy Jones! Thanks a lot for being here, Davy. I mean, Mr. Jones.
Anything for my number one fan.
Look what you've done to me.
Look, it really is Davy Jones.
Me and my whole world. Girl, you've brought the sun to me with your smile. You did it, girl. I'm telling you, girl, something unknown to me makes you what you are.
Hi, Charlie.
Hey, Marsha.
So it goes on from there, but
Nice.
it's like that song is the perfect mesh of the two worlds. You got Davy Jones, you got some like they look like they're the members from like Rage Against the Machine up there. Like it's a hardcore grunge band, and they're like, okay, let's just play it. Let's just go along with
that.
Yeah, and if you get a chance to, I really recommend just watch it from the beginning,
All right.
and you'll be in heaven. And that goes for anyone out there. Like it's a standing invitation. If anyone who wants to watch the Brady Bunch movie, come on over. And I have to say that worked out better than I was expecting. Just putting the phone up.
Yeah, no, it was quite clear.
Because I was trying to, because sometimes I'll reference a song or something from a movie or something you haven't seen, and like, well, let's hope Nick listens to this episode so that way he can hear it. So I was like, I could just play it off my phone. So
technology,
and that way we also know where to put it in the episode. So, anyways, that's my number 5 is the Brady Bunch / the Brady Bunch movie.
Nice. Which brings us to my number 4. Quasi Christmas movie. It's definitely one that's seasonal. And has a similar comedy vibe to 10 Things I Hate About You. This movie contains a moment that is probably...
Is it Love Actually?
It is not. The moment that I have laughed hardest in a film ever. Just Friends.
Oh my god, I love Just Friends. That is one of the first movies that me and Amanda bonded over when we stopped being just friends.
Nice. Got out of the friend zone.
Well, was never really in the friend zone, but still.
Another great cast for a kind of under the radar movie. Anna Faris is fantastic in it.
She's great in everything. Like, she could just do no wrong for me, honestly.
But the moment that made me laugh so hard, and continued to, it was like one of those jokes that didn't, or bits that didn't get old as I watched it. And usually I'm not a physical comedy guy, but
You're not into the Three Stooges and
not particularly, no.
Okay.
After the hockey game, when they strap him onto the stretcher and his mouth is bleeding and they pack him in and they carry him up this big snow hill.
Mm-hmm.
And they accidentally let him go. And he just his whole body strapped onto this gurney, like slides down the hill and then does a 180-degree flip so he falls on his face and slides across the ice.
Here we go.
No. I did some ugly laughing that day.
The funny thing is, the first time I saw the movie, my mom told me about it, and like she's like, I just heard her laughing, like ugly laughing from the other room. I'm gonna start using that now. She's just ugly laughing from the other room, and I was like, only other time I ever heard her laughing like this is the first time she saw the first Ice Age.
Okay.
And I was like, Mom, what are you watching? She's like, I'm watching this movie Just Friends. It's like, oh, what's it about? She's like, this is the worst description she ever gave me. It stars this one guy. She couldn't even tell me who the guy was. She stars this one guy, and he keeps beating the shit out of his brother.
You'll always be bad to me.
Like, what? So we had just gotten DVR at this time. I was like, start this shit over. We're gonna watch it from the beginning.
And the mom is amazing in it, who was in Airplane. She was like the female lead in Airplane, but in this she's like this Midwestern, nice kind of mom. Come on, we're gonna go make snow angels.
Yep.
Really funny. It's one that based on the concept, it shouldn't be as good as it is. Like, you describe the concept, you're like, ooh, gross. Yeah, but it's so funny that it transcends its concept.
Yeah, because the concept, granted, when the movie was made, it wasn't as taboo of a subject, but, the friend zone thing is now, not really a thing.
Yeah.
It was never really a thing, but people have become more aware that the friend zone is bullshit because no one owes you an obligation to date you, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so while this movie I don't think would get made now, or if it was, it would probably be under fire. But no, I feel like this movie does a great job at it doesn't become too overly woe is me, I never got the girl, because the lead character is a piece
right
through most of the film, and you're like, well, no wonder she doesn't want to date you. You're a terrible person.
The over-reliance on the fat suit is like, oh, yep, you can tell what era that film came out with just by the use of the fat suit.
Oh, yes, and I hate to admit how well the fat suit works for me. Like, anytime he's on the fat suit, he's got that higher-pitched voice.
I swear by the moon and the stars and the skies, I'll be there.
Oh my god!
I swear.
And then you can also tell what era of comedy is based on name choices, like the fact that his what is it? His rival is named Dinkelman because
Dusty Dinkelman.
Dusty Dinkelman.
Come on, Dusty.
Oh, and I don't know. I agree with you. This is one of those movies that whenever it came on TV, I could put it on and just be completely happy with my choice.
Yeah. Guilty pleasure.
And I think that's another thing that comes down that's important for guilty pleasure. Guilty pleasure is a movie that you can start anywhere in the movie and be able to watch it and enjoy it. There's some movies where if I didn't watch it from the beginning, I just can't watch this movie.
Yeah.
But same thing with the Brady Bunch movie and the Brady Bunch show. I can watch it from anywhere and be perfectly comfortable just enjoying it through the rest of its ride.
Nice. All right. Well, what is your number 4?
Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan.
Oh, What's guilty about that?
The fact that it's generally hated.
I love Jason Takes Manhattan.
I kind of had a feeling you would.
I celebrate his entire collection.
Well, granted, I don't think there's a single Friday the 13th movie I hate, but like it always kind of
just type that into my little computer.
Whenever like I see a list of people like put the Friday the 13th movies in your ideal order, and like the three that are always at the bottom are Jason Takes Manhattan, Jason X, and Jason Goes to Hell.
Oh, Jason Goes to Hell! All of those are so good.
Yeah.
Jason X got a little out there, but I still loved it.
I love the concept. I've talked a little bit to the screenwriter over Facebook, and he has told me that like when he wrote the script, it was Alien with Jason.
Yeah.
But they had to unfortunately make Alien with Jason on a Sci-Fi Channel budget. So,
right.
I think he did the best he could with that movie. And then Jason Goes to Hell is just great because Jason's barely in the film, but it's so high concept.
Yeah.
And if you watch the unrated version, it's gory as all hell.
Really?
Yeah. But no, I love Jason Takes Manhattan because it is just a perfect party movie. And it's a party movie that you can watch on your own and still have fun with.
Yeah.
Like there is a really gross wet Jason throughout the entire film, which I don't know how he sneaks up on anyone because he should just be just squish the entire film. And that could have been a great gag. Just if someone's walking around, they just heard a squishing sound behind them, and they turn around and there's nothing there. But he doesn't have to squish Nick because he teleports.
Right.
Two of the greatest gags in the movie is at one point a guy's climbing up, up the ship, whatever those things are called, the poles, and he's climbing up to get away from Jason. Like that's a great idea. Like whatever. And he's Jason walks up, looks up, and then just cut to Jason's arm pulling the guy down. Or at one point, like when they're actually in Manhattan, Toronto, they like the teacher, the shitty teacher, he backs up into Jason and sees him, and runs, and he runs towards an abandoned warehouse.
Great decision.
Runs toward the abandoned warehouse. Cut to Jason already upstairs throwing him out the top window. Jason teleports.
Take that, laws of physics.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I just love everything about it. Like, the one scene they actually shot in New York, which was Times Square, and Jason kicks it out of that boombox. It will instantly make me laugh every time. And then the kids are like, oh, what the hell, man? And he just comes.
That's cool.
Flips up his mask, freaks them all out, puts his mask down, and walks away. It's like he's like, they're not even worth killing.
When did Jason get so discriminant?
Right? There's another great moment too when he first gets to Manhattan and he looks up and sees a bill. He's breathing heavy. He sees a billboard and just stops like and just holds his breath, and he sees like a hockey mask on a billboard for like hockey gear.
It's me.
Like,
no, wait, no. That's
like,
I thought I recognized you.
These are all decisions that you cannot tell me were not intentional.
Oh yeah,
because these are all so good.
Well, that'll actually be a great transition because my number 3 is my one horror film of the list. Well, my number 2 might be considered a horror film. Remind me to get back to that, Dad.
Okay.
Based on a video game, which is all
Resident Evil?
It is not, but you're not far off.
Because that would be one of mine.
Silent Hill.
Silent Hill is I don't know. I think it's a well-made movie.
It was. Some of the acting was bad.
I don't know how well it holds up against the video game because I never finished the video game because it freaked me out.
Right.
I remember, like, if you were to watch Resident Evil back-to-back with Silent Hill, the movies, Silent Hill is the better made of the two.
Really? I haven't seen Resident Evil.
It's a guilty pleasure.
You, we're bringing it back.
No, yeah. I like Silent Hill. Like, people give it all the time, and I was like, what's not to like about it? Silent Hill 2, it's a movie.
I didn't say that about it.
But Silent Hill 1, like, it was genuinely creepy.
Yeah. And it had such a, like, weirdly positive, like the antagonist, like, ends up with this heart-wrenching story that you, like, start feeling for.
Yeah.
And then there's the weirdness at the end, the husband's parallel story of him trying to track them down after they left.
And since we're not worried about spoilers, that ending when they
Yeah.
when they both get home at the same time, but they're not, like,
Yeah.
rip my heart out, man.
Yep.
Just rip it out and throw it to the ground.
It pyramid-headed that feeling. Nope, that didn't work.
No.
Nope.
But no, there's so many great moments in that too. Like, you know, I've got some friends who are hardcore into the Silent Hill mythos, and like they're like, "Oh, I thought their use of Pyramid Head in the movie was really good." It's like, that doesn't work because that's not what Pyramid Head stands for, and that's not what his representation means. I'm like, okay, stop scratching your neck beard and just enjoy the movie for what it is. And maybe that's the reason I can enjoy it, because I never finished the games.
Sure.
But I thought, you know, it had great atmosphere. Some of the CGI doesn't hold up, but that's the time period more so than the movie.
Yeah.
Acting was fine.
It was
like,
hit or miss. Some were good, some were less than good.
the atmosphere and the look of the film and some of the scares, like the nurse scene was frightening.
I know. The sound design was just so important in your horror films. Like, they nailed that.
And like they did a great job of like trickling things in slowly. It wasn't like welcome to Silent Hill, blah. Like it was things slowly happening.
The
and
ash,
the use of
the
the
sirens.
Yeah, like, dude, I thought that was a great film. Everyone else is wrong. We're the right ones here.
That is correct. Shame on all of you.
Yeah, shame on everyone.
So what do you got for number 3?
I'm gonna go with my controversial pick.
Oh.
And I feel like I need to discuss it because with the popularity of Marvel and popularity of superhero films, it needs to be said. Y'all need to lay off Daredevil, man. The Ben Affleck Daredevil.
Okay.
Like it's not a popular choice, and there's so many people like that was the worst superhero film ever made, and like, well, I've seen worse. And then 2, hold on, I just want to pull up the. I like having the page in front of me in case I need to like scour for information.
Now I have not seen Daredevil, so I'm not going to be. I don't have a whole lot of insight.
That's fair, but what I thought the film does really well is everyone. You know, I don't know why everyone has a thing against Ben Affleck. Like, I don't think he's that bad. Like, there's sometimes I think he's darn right good. I thought he played a great Daredevil, and the reason I think so is and part of this is because of the film and the creators themselves. Mark Steven Johnson, who directed it, his whole thing was like he hated when he'd watch a superhero movie or a movie about some sort of vigilante who'd go out there, you know, pick a fight, beat the shit out of people who get the beat out of him, and he'd come back and like I think he's kind of talking about the Batman films, and not a single scratch, bruise, or cut would be on him.
Yeah.
You know, early on in the film, like when we first see Matt Murdock as an adult, and you know, actually out as Daredevil doing his thing, he you know, he's beat out of some guys, and honestly gets the shit beat out of him as well. And he comes back and he takes off his Daredevil suit and he's battered, he's bruised. He lays in a hyperbolic chamber type thing, like it's just water, but I think it's to help center himself and to help heal his wounds. And it's the first time in a superhero film, at least to my knowledge, that you saw someone taking damage. You saw not only the physical damage, but the psychological damage this does to someone.
Right. Yeah.
And you really get the idea that he is a loner who's just kind of out doing his own thing until he meets Elektra. And I will admit, the worst part of the film is the love story with Elektra, and there's a really cringy fight scene on a playground when they're not in their outfits or anything, but they're like doing some of the best wire work you've seen outside of a Japanese movie. And then people also will give Colin Farrell as being very over the top as a villain, but I don't know. I thought this movie did a lot of things well, and while it did have some missteps in it, the current slate of Marvel films wouldn't exist without it. And honestly, not all just because Marvel Studios made it nowadays does not mean it's automatically good. There's a lot of Marvel movies.
Okay. I tended to stay away from a lot of the superhero movies in general. I did see Wonder Woman and loved that. But many...
You and Amanda should have a talk about that because she did not love it.
Really?
Well, she didn't dislike it. She just didn't think it was as progressive as everyone claimed it to be.
Oh. I didn't even love it for... I didn't think that it wasn't progressive, but I just liked the film. It was the first time in a long time that the credits rolled, and I'm like, oh, that's it? I thought that only 20 minutes had gone by because I was so wrapped up in.
No, that's one thing I was going to say. For being, it's not a short movie, but it moves.
Yeah,
really, really well. And the reason I was so excited for this Daredevil movie, because Daredevil was my favorite. And is someone dropping a toilet?
Yeah. Beer kegs.
Gotcha. Drinking at work, Nick. Daredevil was my favorite comic book as a kid.
Okay.
I just really gravitated with him, and I
Kevin
really
Smith
excited about this
did
movie.
some write-in for Daredevil.
For the comic books, I believe so. And then he had a cameo in this movie, which is kind of great. He had a great cameo, and he got to chew the scenery a little bit with Joe Pantoliano, which is really great. But like I said, I don't know. Part of it could be nostalgia, but I don't know. I rewatched this movie, I want to say a year ago, and yeah, it's not as awesome as I remember being as a kid, but it's I still really enjoy this movie.
Yeah.
And if I had to, while this wouldn't necessarily rise to the top of my recommendations for people when it comes to superhero movies, if you're looking to see a good superhero movie, Nick, without having to be completely just beat over the head with all the lore of the Marvel films, see the first Captain America film.
Okay.
That's one I would really recommend to you.
All right.
But so yeah, that's my controversial pick. Like I said, to this day, people still give me for liking it.
All right. That brings us to my number 2, and the other one that you may be able to legitimately call a horror film, and that is Care Bears Movie 2: A New Generation.
This is not the first time we've talked about this movie.
It absolutely is not, and I've been waiting for this episode to actually talk about this movie.
Talk about this movie, Nick, 'cause I've not seen it.
The villains in 80s children's cartoons are horrifying. So
yes,
there's the main boy and girl at summer camp, right? And then this kid that gets seduced by this demon thing, who then takes up lodging at one of the summer camp's lodges, and it has this big chandelier, and he starts capturing souls and keeping them in the crystals of the chandelier. So as the Care Bears start actually trying to save the day, they're getting captured and stuck in the crystals of the chandelier, and his eyes glow red, and he can turn into this big mist monster. It is terrifying.
Sounds fantastic, though.
Here's just, alone me saying that I like a Care Bears movie is going to explain, it's self-explanatory as to why it's a guilty pleasure. However, I have two critical responses that I'd like to read as well.
You came prepared for this.
This one. Okay, I guess one is a synopsis. Unfortunately, not many critics cared for the television standard limited animation, planned songs, and blatant product placement in this film.
You can't keep us in here,
strictly for toddlers over age 6. Tries too hard to cram new characters into the plot line. The characters are obviously introduced to create toy lines. This is the weakest of the Care Bear movies. Avoid at all costs. Then John Stanley in Revenge of the Creature Features 1988 film guide says, this inferior sequel is rather charmless. This is strictly Saturday morning at the cartoons, a blatant commercial for Care Bear toys and related products. The bulbs are out as far as ideas are concerned.
I love that these people are doing like legit, like critical analysis of a Care Bears movie.
Right.
Avoid at all costs. Fuck you.
I would.
But fuck you.
And while yes, I take their criticism that it is, but all cartoons in this era were pitches.
Right. This was what 1980 what?
88, I think.
1988. Like, look at Transformers and He-Man. They were toys made into cartoons to sell said toys.
Sorry, 86. Canadian American production.
And Canada is the worst of all. I'm kidding.
Those Canadians. But their villain was excellent.
You can't keep us in here, Darkheart.
Oh, I don't intend to.
And that's what
I remember you played the
for
Care
me.
Bears theme song for me on one of the earlier episodes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So that is my number 2 guilty pleasure.
I'm gonna take it upon myself to eventually just watch that movie, and we can talk about it in tandem with one of our actual episodes.
I would love to do that. I should also rewatch it and see if it still holds up.
Well, you know what? Part of a guilty pleasure is not caring whether or not it holds up.
There you go.
All right, my next one is a TV show.
Okay.
Let me find when it debuted. It debuted in 1987. The original 21 Jump Street.
Ooh. Okay.
This I don't remember
Johnny
when
Depp?
I first. Yes, I don't remember when I first discovered the show. I want to say it was like, it actually might have been one of the Mill Creek collections. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think Mill Creek put this out at one point. Yeah, Mill Creek put it out, and I just bought it on a whim from Target at one point, and it. I don't know what told me I had to buy that. Like, I didn't see Johnny Depp's name or anything. I just saw like the spray painted 21 Jump Street logo, and I was like, fuck yeah. And it's a pretty standard police crime drama.
Yeah.
But all done with people who are supposed to be kids.
They're undercover at the high school.
Undercover at the high school, trying to bust drug rings and...
Got to know how to say Holmes. And the vatos tell me it's from here, it's from the stomach. Holmes. Hey, Holmes. Holmes.
People stripping cars, but it also dealt with like there's plot lines that cover like, and it's not as cheesy as it sounds. Yeah, there's cheesy moments, but like they deal with issues about like hate crimes and alcoholism, homophobia, AIDS. I think there's one episode where it had to do with like a pornography ring that they were breaking up.
Wow.
And like one of the first episodes like had a rich kid who is hooked on drugs and owes some drug dealers a lot of money, and they break into his house during breakfast with machine guns.
Wow.
Like, this show goes there. And the theme song is fantastic too. Like, I defy anyone to hear this theme song and not get into it. I'm gonna play a couple seconds of it for you, Nick, because now that I found that this works, I'm gonna use this fact. So, can you hear it?
Yeah. I used to. Oh. Jump Street.
Like it's just so good. It's so good. Like this is another comfort show. Like I can. This is not a show where I can just throw on any random episode. Like I need to like start from the beginning and just watch until I get bored. But it's great.
I had a taped off of TV copy of the Neverending Story that kept putting in 21 Jump Street promos on the commercial breaks.
If that's not the most 80s thing that I can imagine,
right?
It's VHS taped off a television of Neverending Story with promos of 21 Jump Street, like
and amazing Fuzzy Folgers commercials.
Yeah, like, damn, that is the 80s right there. But no, like all things considered, like it's one of Johnny Depp's first roles, and like you can definitely see, that he's money.
Give him ice.
Want some ice? I go get you some ice. Get your soda too.
Yeah,
you can see that like he's gonna go off to do big things, and it's also kind of interesting too because the lead
like
character,
Nightmare on Elm Street.
This was after Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, okay.
Like his character is a young Republican, which amuses the shit out of me. I don't know why that's so funny to me. He's and Johnny Depp kept trying to add weird things into his character. Like he wanted his character to be obsessed with peanut butter, and they kept telling him no. So he did a cameo in the 21 Jump Street movie.
Yeah. Come on, you guys are Jump Street?
Yeah.
That's funny because we were actually Jump Street.
What? That's
yeah.
crazy.
Oh yeah.
Play in his old character undercover, and he was obsessed with peanut butter because he wanted to add that joke in the show, and they kept telling him no. Dom DeLuise's son Peter's in the show. Holly Robinson, who was kind of was a bit of a name in the 80s. Holly Robinson, I feel like she's done a lot of stuff. And, I don't know. It's goofy, it's harmless fun, but there's a bit of an edge to it because it's dealing with real shit. And I thought it was actually kind of interesting. Some people would roll their eyes at it. A lot of the episodes ended with a public service announcement from the cast and crew, pretty much saying, like if you know someone who's dealing with this shit, call this number. Like,
no, that's awesome.
There are people out there. So, hell yeah. 21 Jump Street, Nick.
All right, my number one, my only TV show on the list, and it's one that I've certainly talked about on the show before, Red Dwarf.
I have not seen it.
It's one that a lot of nerds haven't. It's British and didn't get nearly as much play in the States. Fun fact, they actually made a pilot for an American reboot of it that never got off the ground. Which I'm okay with. I don't think it would have worked with American humor as well.
I am Tarka Doll, an ambassador of the great Vendelian Empire.
Scanners reported human life on your vessel. Is this so?
Humans? The Vendelian people despise all humans. They are the vermin of the universe. Is that not right, Bindi Badgie?
But I absolutely love it. Those that have seen it and heard of it, I often get like oh, yeah, it's okay. It is so campy. It is so campy. And I find it so charming.
Howdy doodly do. How's it going? I'm Talkie. Talkie Toaster, your chirpy breakfast companion.
I've heard of the show a lot because like I always remember Red Dwarf being mentioned usually in the same breath as Spaced. Which I've seen, I like Spaced quite a bit, but funny thing, oddly enough, the reason I never got around to it because I saw the title Red Dwarf and I thought it was gonna be a science show.
Okay.
About like planets, is like,
right? Cosmos.
Yeah, it's like I'm good. Not realizing that that's not at all what it is.
It's hard to try. For a while, it was available on Netflix or Hulu. I don't remember which. But they pulled it when BBC, I think, was creating their own streaming service. Now it's on Dave, which is
what the hell is Dave?
I believe it's a British network / streaming service.
Yeah, you can also get it there. I've got an app called Just Watch.
Okay.
And you can search things. If you can apparently rent it or through BritBox, whatever BritBox is.
So each season typically has 6 episodes. They're real short seasons. And they've been going a really long time because whenever interest kind of wanes, they stop making it for a while. And then the fans get rabid and they're like, all right, fine, we'll make another season. And then they make 2 more seasons and then fan base wanes again. But they just came out with a new season last year.
Really?
Yes, they're still making Red Dwarf, and they're all old and crotchety, but they're still playing same characters.
That's kind of great that they can still keep getting funding for it, because it's not on my list, but a guilty pleasure of mine, I think I've mentioned on previous shows, is a Canadian show called Todd and the Book of Pure Evil.
Yeah.
And they're struggling to even get, they had 2 seasons, they were canceled. Then they wanted to make a movie and couldn't get funding for it. So now they're making an animated movie because it costs way less. And it's like, here, this show's got a big fan base, but they can't get shit made. But Red Dwarf can be like, let's make another season. It's kind of funny that they're doing well enough that they can just keep coming back whenever they feel like. It's like Monty Python. They'll just never go away.
Yeah. Yep. Very much so. All right.
What is the show about? What is the show about? Sell me on this. I don't know anything about this show, Nick, other than it's a comedy and you love it.
The first episode sets up the entire series where they're on a mining ship way out in space, and the protagonist is Dave Lister, who is like he's a slob. He's barely, the man is not out there because he's career-oriented.
Gotcha.
He's like the lowest ranked person on this entire mining ship.
Damn.
He gets in trouble for bringing a kitten on board.
Okay.
And his punishment is to spend the rest of the trip in stasis. So he wakes up from stasis, and everyone on the ship is gone.
Oh no.
Apparently there was like a technical issue and the entire ship vaporized, and it's like 3 billion years in the future or something where like humans don't exist anymore, really. Not that they'd know that because they're out in space, but it's just him on this mining ship. But then he realizes that his obnoxious roommate is still around as a hologram.
Okay.
His cat evolved into, like, through generations, into like a bipedal human-like cat.
That's great.
So the first season is just the 3 of them and their misadventures on the ship. And then in the second season, I believe they discover Crichton, which was an android that they picked up, taking care of 3 skeletons that he thought were still alive.
So it's a sci-fi show.
It's a sci-fi show that never really deals with sci-fi stuff.
That's pretty great. I feel like if I were to do a sci-fi show, that's what I would do, because I don't know shit about science, but I like spaceships and shit.
It's more like watching an episode of The Odd Couple, but on a big empty spaceship.
See, that's if I were to write a sci-fi movie, that's what it would be like.
Yeah.
That sounds great, Nick. I'm legitimately going to look into that. I'm going to see what BritBox is and see if I can watch the show.
Nice. All right, that brings us to your number 1.
And to my number 1, like I said, I made a list of a couple, and I didn't know which one to go with. So, This is actually a harder decision than I thought it was going to be. You know what? Let's just go out with some fun. My number 1 guilty pleasure in a movie that I can say I watch more than probably anything else, I'll put it on for a little while. You know what I mean? Is Austin Powers 2. The Spy Who Shagged Me.
Nice.
They're not great films, but it does everything for me. It's a spoof of James Bond. It's really out there. It's got a nice musical number with Elvis Costello.
That's right.
And it's just like, no matter how many times I've seen that movie, it never gets old to me.
Nice. No, that's a good one. I feel really good about that.
Yeah, I do too, because it's the definition of guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
And while I don't know if we'll ever get another Austin Powers movie in our lifetime, I don't know if I necessarily want one now, because they had such a good couple, a good period of those 3 movies all came out in a good amount of time with each other. I don't know if it'd be like when they made the Dumb and Dumber sequel. It's not anything. I don't think I actually want that. Like I've got 3 perfect films, perfect with it quotation marks, and I'm happy with that. Like I think Heather Graham is a fantastic second to Austin Powers in that movie.
Powers girl.
Yeah, and she's smoking in that movie too. Dr. Evil's got some of his best moments, especially since he gets Mini-Me in that film.
He is exactly like you in every way. Except 1/8 your size.
Breathtaking. I shall call him Mini-Me.
With the time travel elements, I love it.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't know what else to say about it other than like, because I was going back and forth. It's like I had a couple other picks on my list. I had that. I had the '90s movie Heavyweights.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
That is a kids go to fat camp movie. It's
Nice.
also got one. It's got a really early performance by Ben Stiller, kind of playing an extension of who he later plays in Dodgeball.
Okay.
At age 12, I weighed 319 pounds. I eat success for breakfast with skim milk. That is out of here, mister!
Like, you know, there's this fat camp with these kids, and they all go to school. They all go to fat camp, and you know they think it's gonna be them losing weight, but it's really just like, you guys love it here. Just be happy and be fat. And then the camp gets sold out and bought by Ben Stiller, who wants to turn it into a training camp to like show that kids can lose weight and everything.
Nice.
And it's great because Jerry Stiller and
yeah.
Ben Stiller's real mom, they played the previous camp owners. And there's a great scene where they're telling the kids they have to sell the camp. Like they tell them once the camp year's already began, which seems really stupid. And like Jerry Stiller's cried. He's like, "Let me give you a piece of advice, kids. Never let anyone else sign your checks." And it's a Disney movie from like the '90s that it just hits a sweet spot. And Ben Stiller is insane, and later on plays his own dad in the movie, which is pretty great. And,
oh, nice.
It's like I said, that was going to be my first pick, but something kept telling me I need to go with Austin Powers.
Yeah. Oh, we got them both in.
Yeah, we got them both in. So I have technically had like 8 picks because
I threw your in.
Yeah, it's true. You had 6. Anything else you want to talk about, Nick, before I talk about some sponsorship stuff?
I would love to, but I actually have to duck out for work stuff. So if we could record our ending, and then
I can record the sponsorship stuff. Yeah.
All right.
Well, I think that's it for everything, Nick. I feel like I need to start actually saying this so people know to do it. As always, please rate, review, and subscribe to the show. We are on iTunes, the SoundCloud. I've confirmed we are on Google Play.
Yay.
And hopefully soon everyone's Google Homes will be able to play the show.
Ooh.
I talked to their customer support the other day and might have gotten a new fan because of that.
Awesome.
I don't know, did you see? I sent that to you, right, Nick?
Yeah. Yep.
Where Brian Romo is now he's going to start watching the show, and I even asked him what his favorite movies are, and he told me one is called Crazy Little Thing Called Love. It's a Thai movie, and the movie Shakespeare in Love.
Oh, nice.
So
sweet.
If you're listening, Brian, I told you I would talk about this on the show. Oh, and we are on Stitcher Radio as well.
So yeah, keep listening. What are your guys' guilty pleasures? We'd love to know.
Yeah, tell us some of your guilty pleasures.
So we can make fun of you for it.
Show us that you're listening. Tell us some of your guilty pleasures. And I'm going to throw it out there now. If any of you, even it could just be off your cell phone, records what your guilty pleasures are, we will play them.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
If not on this episode, the next, well, it won't be this episode because you haven't heard it yet. The next episode, we will play your guilty pleasures.
Austin Powers will go back in time to insert your recorded audio into this episode.
Damn straight. But I think that's everything, Nick.
Cool. Have a good one.
You too, brother.
Later.